Welcome to another coaching session YouTube video. This was on the podcast this past week, episode 327. I spoke a little bit about what we're doing to teach our players how to deal with crosses. So let's get into it here. The way that I started with the field, first of all, the field is very small. So here we're just using the full field, but technically it's very small, maybe about, I don't know, 20 yards in between the nets. And I start with setting up cones on the wide space, just like that. We move this over a little bit. Okay, maybe we don't. So depending on how many players you have is going to essentially make the difference of what's going on. But essentially what we're looking at is two defenders, which is your two center defenders against two, so 2v2. And then we're going to add two wingers, that are in the wide space. And those are neutral players. If you have enough, you want to add more players, you can then put two goalkeepers. And that makes the game super competitive. So the two goalkeepers is really good. So essentially, again, field's a lot smaller. And what we're saying is that the ball has to be crossed in for your team to score. So just like that. Obviously, he would come here. And then the way that I started it was one touch. You have to finish with one touch. So what we're looking to eliminate is that when the player goes in front and the defender isn't goal-sided, or maybe that ball here, and they're kind of just paying too much attention to the ball. And there's a cross that's made through here for the goal. So we're really looking at making sure that our players are first in between their player and the net. That's the first coaching point here. Because if they're not in between the player and the net, then there's a passing lane through or passing lane back, and that's not what we want. So that's the first part. The second part is having your body open, but I really don't like that. I really like to give my players specific instructions. So what we say is that we want, let me see if I can find a player here that does that, but I doubt it. Well, let's use this one. That one, perfect. So let's move the ball over to the other side because that makes the most sense. So what we're looking at here, and hopefully you can see this, is we want one knee to face the player and the other knee should be facing the ball. And if you do that, your body will always stay open and you will always be able to see the player and the ball, the player with the ball. So that's what we're looking for. And in the games, the phrase that I'm going to be using from now on is going to be knee to knee. So I want one knee to that player and the other knee to the ball. So you could say knee to knee, or you can say knee to player, knee to ball. That's another thing. So that's really the two things that we're working on. Now, it's gonna, at the beginning, especially, so I did this with my 2012s that are U10. So at the beginning, every single possession was just goal after goal after goal. And that was really great because it showed that we're really struggling with it. And then once I put in my first coaching point in between the player and the net, less goals. And then by the time that I spoke about need a player, need a ball, there were no goals. And as soon as you get about a stretch of 3 to 4 minutes with no goals, then you can start to make the game more tough. So instead of one touch now, where's the ball? This player can take as many touches as they want before they score. The next step with that would be that this player can now make another pass to score. And the other thing that I've done as well is I've allowed the goalkeeper to shoot. I've also added a neutral player from the beginning, and we'll put them in red. And that just makes the game more tough because at this point, now it's 3 against 2. And these guys have to understand that who's the player that's dangerous, the most dangerous. Well, the 2 players closest to the strong side and closest to the net are the most dangerous. So they have to start talking, right? So that was a really good part of it as well. But yeah, so I described this in the podcast, episode 327 at the end there. So if you want to listen to that, Coaching Soccer Weekly, you can. But that's all for today.